In the world of mobile gaming, Supercell was once at the top, known for their biggest games such as Clash of Clans and Clash Royale. However, in recent years, Supercell has faced a massive decline with none of their games seeming to stick around. And today, we will be going over all the factors that have led to this massive decline, but first, we need to see how they got popular in the first place. Supercell started in 2010 by a small group of passionate developers, and the Finnish mobile game development company found success pretty quickly. It had extremely driven people working at the top, including but not limited to Mikko Kohdisarjo, Ilkka Pennanen, and Lassi Lappinen. They knew each other from business connections beforehand, with Pennanen and Kohdisarjo working closely together at Sumia, which was a mobile video game company. The first couple games that Supercell made were majorly focused on being played by Facebook users. However, with a decline in Facebook, and most people not playing the game for long periods, they decided to completely change their strategy and instead focused on mobile-based gaming. In May of 2012, just 2 years after they had started, Supercell caught their first lucky break in the form of a farming game. Heyday became the first game to put Supercell on the gaming scene, and also the first game made by Supercell to be released internationally. It garnered huge success, being played by nearly 30,000 players even today, and having hosted over 4 million players since its release. The game became one of the most profitable games to be featured on Apple's App Store in the US. It was obvious from the start that Supercell was going places. I don't think I even need to talk about what happened soon after Heyday was released. We are all very well aware of how huge Supercell's next game was, and for good reason too. There are many reasons that caused Clash of Clans to grow so big, from the extremely simple gameplay to the low time investment players had to make in the game. It is truly a game that changed how mobile games were made and developed. Moreover, Clash of Clans became a huge cultural icon, and boasts of a huge player base even today, and Supercell has become a household name along with it. But if you want an even better analysis of Clash of Clans, then you can watch my video on it here. Not only was Clash of Clans a huge success, but Supercell managed to develop many more successful games. Notably, Boom Beach was a game that Supercell released in 2014. Over 2 years after the release of Clash of Clans. At first, the game was extremely successful, being at the top of the download charts in the US, and after an expensive marketing campaign in December 2014, it passed Heyday in the charts and became one of Supercell's most successful games. Another game which we need to talk about is obviously Clash Royale, featuring most of the same characters as Clash of Clans. This game became one of the most beloved in the fan base when it was first released and received great commercial success. Although it was much more different than the other games, a card game rather than an action game like most of Supercell's other games, it didn't take long for it to become a crucial part of the Supercell brand, with many players even preferring Clash Royale instead of Clash of Clans. However, as time went on, it seemed like Supercell could not maintain this upward trend. Now, before we move further, I want to introduce you to a character. One of the first characters that you will ever get in both Clash of Clans and Clash Royale. The giant character in-game is one of the most loved characters. The special characteristic of the giant is that it directly attacks the biggest problem, defensive buildings in Clash of Clans and the crown towers in Clash Royale. However, this type of attack does have its drawbacks. Most notably, if there is any other enemy attacking the giant, then the giant, instead of attacking the enemy, would just ignore it. So sending a giant alone without any support to take care of all the little things would be certain death. Supercell may have created this character and the awesome games, but it seems like they don't see the obvious lesson they need to learn here. Since the past few years, Supercell has been on a constant decline. For one, as the years have stretched more and more, Supercell has made a culture of canceling games and fostering stagnation. Although it has released many major games that have impacted the industry in a very big way, at the same time it has also shut down over 10 games. 10 full games which were planned out and were in various stages of development. Not only that, but there's been no major release from Supercell in the past 5 years, with the last game that Supercell released being Brawl Stars. But that's just one small part of the story. As time has gone by, the world around Supercell has changed, but Supercell has not. Most of Supercell's games did pretty well at launch and still have a following, but almost none of Supercell's games are in the top 50 games played today, much less in the top 10 or top 20. They have started to face competition, people making similar games in the same genres, and even though they innovate and make amazing games, Supercell seems content on just updating the same games indefinitely, siphoning cash from their most dedicated players until they quit. And that brings us back to one of the biggest reasons why Supercell has been doing worse. Most of the updates that Supercell does just make the games worse and even more pay to win. For example, if you take a look at Clash of Clans and look at the new Clash Capital introduced, as well as the normal game past the early town hall levels like 6 or 7, we find that development slows down to a crawl very quickly. Just a single upgrade can take multiple days and sometimes even weeks, and getting the funds for just a couple of upgrades can take you days. So most players are faced with a choice. Either spend money on the game to get all the strong items faster, or die repeatedly to the people who choose option 1. But not only that, the worst offender here would have to be Clash Royale. Most of the updates, including the recent update adding card evolutions to the game, are locked behind paywalls. Either you have the gold or diamond pass, which allows you to access that content, or you spend 100 hours on the game just to get it, which means essentially Clash Royale is being updated for only the people who spend money. And not just that, recently Supercell is even increasing the prices and removing many items from the free battle pass, which means that many free-to-play players are leaving the game. Bad game practices like this are what are really hurting Supercell's player count and the major reason why Supercell has so few players playing their games. After all, only a few people are willing to spend enough money and have deep enough pockets to actually have a viable deck. This brings us full circle to the giant that is Supercell in a very literal way. Supercell is completely engrossed in just getting greater and greater profits. Much like how Netflix increased its prices, companies like these don't understand that the only way to keep getting profits, to keep their players, is to work with them, not against them. As Supercell lumbers its way, having only greater profits in mind, the onslaught of small cuts from players leaving their games and all their new updates bringing in less and less players. It really seems like Supercell, much like the giant, is just fated to die. Without any support system to take care of these problems, the case may be that eventually Supercell loses all its goodwill and with it, all its success. The story of Supercell is one filled with one of the most promising video game companies slowly losing sight of what made it successful in the first place and ignoring any and all feedback from its players. And maybe Supercell will finally start to address all these issues and come back to form, regaining all the trust it had during its early days. But as of today, with the way Supercell is going, it seems like Supercell is doomed to be forgotten.